Welcome to the December to Remember event featuring tons of interviews with first-time home buyers who just successfully closed on their first home. Make sure to check out all the episodes in this series and check the show notes for specifically referenced episodes so you can start learning how to buy your first home. Enjoy this interview.
Hey, homies, excited to bring you another first-time homebuyer story. This is Elizabeth, who bought in Ohio for $164,000. And when she reached out to me, the first thing she said was, "This is daunting and I don't want to get screwed over." So let's find out if that happened to her or not. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. Are you in your new home?
I am. Yep. Right behind me is our newly painted wall. And our newly redone floor is underneath me. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that? Oh, so let's dive right in. How did that go? How was the process with new floors? Painting, everyone knows.
Yeah.
What did you do with the floors?
That we really kind of jumped in the deep end with that one. We did it ourselves. It was wood floor, and it started out black, and we were like not really into a black wood floor.
Was it painted or was it? Yeah, I guess so. Because black wood.
I guess it was some kind of a varnish or something.
Okay.
But we were like, we want to, rip this up and make it real wood again. And so we rented some tools from Home Depot. A note to anyone who wants to do that, it does take a toll on your body. So if you want to do some of the sanding portion of it, you gotta lock in a few weeks to do it and recover. But we did it, and there were little marks on the floor that I think were probably why they painted it black, but we don't really mind it. You can just cover it with a rug or something like that. But we just did it by ourselves. It took about a month, the whole process of sanding and doing the finish and everything, and we love it. It's awesome.
So while you were doing that, here you are in your new house, and now you have this every day, this chart of project for the black floor and the wood floor.
Yeah. So one of the nice things about how it kind of ended up working out for us is that our apartment lease ended at the end of September, but we ended up closing at the beginning of August. So we had 2 months where we were like, we can do whatever we want because we don't have, none of our stuff is in the house. So we don't have to worry about it. And now looking back, it's like, I can't imagine trying to get that done with everything in the house. So it ended up working really, really well, and with the painting as well.
I tell people all the time when you're looking to move in, if you have your target number, in the last lease ever, I say it's 8%. Go ahead and do 9% so that you have that extra, if you have to, pay extra on your rent, to have that crossover, because there are things that get done so much easier when the house is empty.
Yeah. Yeah. And having, an extra, even, a couple weeks for moving itself. I mean, we moved things incrementally, and it made it so much easier.
Yeah. I have a lot of buyers that end up telling me, we did carloads, and then one Saturday we got a truck for the big things and we were done. But the other thing that, people need to know out there when you're buying a home is that you pay your rent forwards. Mm-hmm. So on the first of the month, you pay for the next 30 days. You pay your rent backwards. Mm-hmm. So when you end up buying a home on the 15th, you get the keys that day on the 15th, but your first payment isn't due in 15 days. Your payment isn't due for 6 weeks.
Yeah, ours actually worked out perfectly, where it was we were paying rent, mortgage, and it month to month. It was perfect. Yeah.
So, and you had that whole time where you had more than a month before a payment was due.
Yeah, it was perfect.
That's incredible. Okay, well, you got into the floors right away, so I skipped my first question. You're a new homeowner. You reached out to me and you were afraid of being screwed and you thought the whole thing was daunting, but you're sitting in your newly painted, newly floored home. What's your biggest tip for everybody listening to you?
Honestly, it probably sounds kind of cheesy, but you're already there. I think if you're looking for the answers, you're looking for advice, and you're listening to this podcast. I mean, you're already on your way to feeling better about all of the decisions you have to make in the home buying process. I think for me, especially, the longer I was doing research, and the more things that I learned, the more comfortable that I was with the whole process. And then obviously having my realtor and lender and everything, and they totally know what they're doing. Obviously, like I think we just ended up leaving kind of a ton of stuff to them. It's like they know what they're doing. I don't have to worry about it because this is their job and they do this every day, and that's what they're here for.
It's a big balancing act I want to know as much to be confident, but then I also am going to release some of that and let the professionals do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And, where I come in is trying to scream in this microphone all the time because people end up realizing once you start trying to tackle the information, it is daunting. That was the word you used to me.
Yeah.
So just get comfortable. And like you said, you're already there. I truly believe that because if you're listening to this podcast, you're putting the work in.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt someone listening to this podcast has no ability. It's not how, it's just when.
Yeah.
And for you came in with a good chunk of money already saved. So let me ask you about your rental history. How long have you been renting?
It's been like a few years. We've been renting together for about 2 years. And then on my own, I had been renting for a couple of years as well.
Did you buy together with your partner? I'm assuming it's just not you and the cats when you say we.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing that kind of happened with us is that technically me and my husband did buy together, but something kind of happened with his credit where we actually were able to just do the mortgage through my income. And it kind of was kind of a sort of blessed happenstance that he actually switched jobs like the week before we closed,
Oh
which
my
would have
God.
been a no-go, right? If he had been part of the mortgage, but since it was just me, it was like he can do whatever he wants. So it all worked out perfectly.
I would like to clarify. If he changed complete industries, then it's a no-go.
Right. Yeah.
Technically, if he stayed in the same industry, if he went from, one oil company to another oil company or whatever, if he went from teaching in one school to teaching in another school, that's still okay. It would have been major hoops for you to jump through at that moment, but that's still okay. Here's the cool thing about this. So you guys did this now. So when you're right, technically you bought the home because the loan is just in your name. But he can be on title and be an owner of the home.
Yep.
But what's really cool is when you start saving up, if you want to do something again, if you ever felt like it, he could go out and buy a property on his own as an investment property. And it would only be showing him there because he's not on this mortgage. So he could buy his first property if you guys ever felt like doing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so tell us about it. You reached out to me in May. On August 1st, you sent me the text saying, this is daunting and overwhelming. I don't want to get screwed. And I probably wrote something back like, you won't get screwed. I'm going to find you a unicorn. And then you probably said, you're weird. But then you ended up owning this home on August 1st.
Mm-hmm.
What was the process? What happened? Okay, so you met your team.
So pretty much what happened was that we actually had just gotten married in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it seemed like, obvious next step. Let's just, let's buy a house. Jumping in, it was like, I know nothing. And I like knowing things. I love learning things. So I felt very uncomfortable and again, daunting, not knowing anything about this process. So we pretty much spent, I want to say like 2 or 3 weeks, just completely like research. And that's kind of where this podcast came in and everything like that. Literally just learning what even is this process because I don't know what's going on. And then I think
you're pretty impressive to get that in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we got to a point
you must be an over researcher.
Yeah, we got to a point where it was like I'm comfortable like going to a realtor and understanding the conversations that we would have, right? So then I reached out and we got Carrie and she was awesome. She was great at answering questions and everything like that. And we actually went for our lender was a credit union where my husband had an account. So yeah, we'd heard that credit unions were pretty much the best thing you could do. And so we were like, yeah, sure. We're already in there. So.
And that worked out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was that easy.
So a lot of times when people are first-time home buyers without any savings, I will let them know that they have potentially better options at mortgage brokers, because a lot of times the credit unions are only looking at people that have a decent amount of savings and have good credit. You came into this with that. So for you, it was great, because I think, what did you have, like 30 grand before you came in?
Yeah, about between the two of us.
What, did you put 20% down then?
No, we ended up doing 5%. Just so we could have kind of emergency fund and everything like that, which was, again, like I didn't know anything about this process. You always hear 20%, and it's like, I didn't even know you could do it with 5%. It's, and then you have your buffer money, and you can always pay that towards the, towards your principal later. So yeah, that really made it super easy as well.
This is one of those moments when my kids say something back to me that I've been trying to tell them for 20 years. Which is funny because they're not even 20 yet. Would you please expand on why someone with 20% would ever consider putting 5% down, expand on that buffer and PMI and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, technically we have enough money to put down 20%. And, that was an option that we could have done and avoided PMI. But, looking at the numbers, it's like, okay, you know what PMI is, you get it in your, the sheet that the lender sends you. And it's, something like $40 a month. And that's just something that you have to put into your budget. And you're going to have to pay that for a while until you get to 80% ownership, or 20% ownership. You kind of know what that is. I think knowing that PMI, this cost is there versus putting all of our savings down. And now we're left with a couple thousand to cover. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months. I mean, even
to go rent flooring stuff from Home Depot.
Exactly. Yeah. Even some of the projects we've worked on, it's like, I didn't know how much that was going to cost. Obviously nothing has been like a big blow for us yet. Nothing crazy has happened about the house, but even some of that stuff, it's like, it costs more than you think it might. And, God forbid something, emergency happens, and now we have to pay for that.
I was doing some math while you were chatting there. So at 20% down for your $164,000 home would have cost you $37,800.
Right.
At 5% down, it's $8,200, a savings of $29,600 that you have in the bank. So it costs $40 a month more for PMI, and probably maybe $100, $200 more in the loan amount, the difference between a 5% down payment and 20% down payment for your. So, I'll be crazy overestimating. So let's say it's 150 more. So 150, 140, call it 200. So it costs you $200 more a month to put 5% down, but you have $29,600 in the bank. Sorry, probably $20,000 after you did all your floor stuff. Now, is that something you guys did researching? Was that something hearing from me? Was that something that you talked with your credit union and your realtor about? How did you guys come to that decision?
I think it was mostly what the credit union, they offered us a couple different options. And that's kind of where we decided to do an ARM loan instead of a fixed rate.
Nice.
And so it was kind of along with that of like, what's risky versus what's, a lower monthly payment. And then, I forgot to mention it in the earlier conversation, but, closing costs are there, which again, I had never heard of before, researching all this stuff. And it's like, closing costs, it's hard to know what that even is going to come out to until you're, at closing, essentially. Depending on what house you get in the seller, they could cover some of it or none of it. And so you don't know. So I think doing 5% definitely left us with a lot of flexibility in that area too.
Closing costs are, for someone who likes to have everything down to the penny, you're going to go bald or have a heart attack when you try to do closing costs. I can't fix it. I can't change it. There is no trick. It's, you have to prepay some of your mortgage. So if you close on the 10th, you have to pay 20 days of mortgage. If you close on the 28th or the 29th, you might have to pay a day or two.
Yeah.
If you close at where there's 5 months of taxes that you have to prepay versus closing where there's 1 month, it can range by thousands. And that's just the timing, the house and everything else that goes with it, and the prepaying on the insurance. I did a whole episode about it. But you said something else. Talk to me about the ARM, the adjustable rate mortgage.
Yeah.
What? I always tell people, if you're savvy enough and you understand it, which you obviously do, it can be a great tool. How did you guys come to that decision?
Yeah. So yeah, the the adjustable rate is so fun because I'm on some of the like Reddit forums now about like housing and stuff, and there are some people on there who will just try and tear apart adjustable rate mortgages, and they're like, oh, what about 2008 and all this, and it's like.
Did you type in low inventory? Please tell me you just went in there and typed in low inventory.
It's like, look, just read your amortization schedule. It's all in there. It's all in there. And what your lender sends you, it tells you, this is pretty much your worst case payment. And so basically what ours is ours is a 15-1, which means that for 15 years, our rate is fixed. And then every month after that, it can go up by a certain percentage. And then it caps, I think, somewhere around 11%. So that's if the interest rate is that high in 16 years and we still have the house, then we're going to be seeing a bigger payment. But for the next 15 years, our payment is going to be the same, depending on taxes and everything. But
but you're right. But you missed one. If interest rates are at 11,
yep.
If you're still in the house, if you haven't had a chance to refinance out of it,
yep.
into another fixed loan product.
Yep, exactly.
Because with the 15 by the way, in the Reddit forum, you should have said low inventory and you should have said back off. I'm talking about a 15-1.
Exactly.
Because the people who freak out about it, they're talking about the 3-1s and the 5-1s and the 7-1s. And I have a lot of very smart buyers over the years that have purchased a 5-1 or a 7-1 ARM. Sometimes it has to do with the fact they know they're only going to be there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that, maybe they're in finance and they see a potential refinance coming for them. But the people who know how to do it right and save for it, but a 15-1 is, that's as safe as you can get.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you on camera right now. Oh, as a matter of fact, I just saw your cat fly by. That was awesome.
Yep.
Wow. That was fun for the viewers. You're young, so is this a forever home for you? How did the process go for choosing this home?
Yeah, so this home, it's a 2-bed, 2-bath. So our thought is, if we end up having kids, probably not going to stay in this home. It's the same square footage as our apartment was, which makes it pretty nice for furniture. It's like we almost have too much furniture to put in the house. We just move it all over. Didn't have to buy anything new. So yeah, I think our plan is really, staying here for 7 years or so. Whatever that ends up looking like. And yeah, this house, our mortgage was just through my income, which again kind of made it kind of nice when it came to the pre-approval, because I think we had kind of a max in mind in terms of we wanted the flexibility to know that we could pay the mortgage on one income if we had to.
Yeah, and you got the number straight from the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
It qualified on you.
It's perfect. So we were like, yeah, this is the perfect pre-approval amount. Like, we feel totally comfortable using all of this if we have to. And I think I got it pre-approved for $240, and we bought it $165. So again, like way under budget. I think really the only thing is it's kind of in like a worse school district, but we don't have kids. So like we aren't really affected by that. So I guess that was maybe part of why it was a little cheaper than some of the other houses in our area that we could have gone with, but it's totally working out for us.
I just mentioned this on another podcast. The thing about school districts is that if you're not planning on having kids, you should think about school districts because you can get more bang for your buck. Cheaper house because the school districts work that way. Also, you said 7 years you're going to stay in this house, and you said maybe you might have kids. Well, you know what? If you guys decide to have kids next year or the year after, if you did, doesn't matter. Yeah. But if you did, you don't have to worry about school districts for 6-7 years.
Exactly.
If that, a lot of people say, as long as you're in there by second or third grade, but I mean, you've still got a lot of time. That would definitely, if you got pregnant tomorrow, it would still fit in your 7-year plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that was definitely in our thoughts, was like, yeah, if doing the math, if we're in here for 7 years and exactly, pregnant tomorrow, we're still not going to touch the school district. So yeah, definitely felt totally fine with that decision.
That's so exciting. All right. So what are the differences? Because you said it's the same square footage. What are the differences between the apartment and the property you own?
Yeah. So honestly, pretty much all of the houses that we looked at, but this house as well, it's in kind of an older area. So a lot of older houses that we looked at, the bedrooms are pretty small, but we do have a basement, which I like, having the basement as opposed to a second floor, which was kind of a cool thing to figure out when we were touring houses. It was like, what do I like? What do I not like? So I'm glad that we ended up with a basement and not a second floor.
And you figure that out like after you went into a couple different houses? I got to think about it. We don't have basements in California. Why? Well, I guess a second floor is pretty much exclusively for bedrooms. But a basement is multi-purpose?
So honestly, the main reason is we were looking at houses in June and July. And when you go on the second floor of a house in June and July, and an old house, it's hot. And I used to live on the third floor of an old house. It's hot. And in the basement, it's going to be a better temperature, whether it's summer or winter, honestly. And that was, 90% of the reason was that.
That's so genius. I think if people didn't grow up in a basement, but they live in a basement community, or they're going to buy in a basement community. Mm-hmm. But if they live in a house where they don't have a basement, maybe they've been to their friend's house and been to basements every once in a while, but immediately you go into apartment life, they might not know. They learned like you learned, like, oh my gosh, this is in the ground. There is cool, moist soil around this, and it always stays cool.
Yep. It's awesome.
Okay, tell me the other differences. Because, you got a house versus an apartment. So there's got to be some big differences besides the basement. What's the land like? What's the yard like?
Yeah, so we have a pretty small yard, but coming from, so we lived in kind of an interesting apartment. I'd almost call it, like, if you could imagine, it essentially was kind of a townhome, but it was an apartment since it was rented. So it was kind of a one floor. We had our own garage, so it was pretty nice in that respect. But we did have shared walls, and really, zero yard. We had like a little patio. So yeah, big difference with yard, and we have so many more windows, which was definitely a big factor in wanting to get, especially a single family home. Windows on all sides. It feels like something you kind of take for granted, but living in the apartment for so long, it was like, man, middle of the day, and I have to turn on a light to see something in the middle of my apartment.
It depends on where you are in the apartment, but I had tons of my own apartments and my friends' apartments. It was like, I'm living in the Bat Cave, And I'm looking behind you right now on the video, and your newly, freshly painted wall is just splashed with beautiful natural light.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. While I'm in a black room with these stupid camera lights on me. This is what I really like to hear about this is it potentially at least in the ways of the square footage and like the size of the rooms, it could be considered a lateral move.
Yeah.
But the difference is that you have those extras, but you own it now.
Yep.
And what was the rent payment versus the mortgage payment?
Yeah. So our rent was about $1,800 before utilities and everything. And the mortgage payment is about $1,200, $1,250. So big improvement.
Hey, everybody who on Reddit, how's that math for your arms suck? I think the average person, before the pandemic, I think the average person lived in their house for 7 years. That's everybody, not just first-time homebuyers. First-time homebuyers were like 5.5. It's gone up to about 7 and 9 years now. But again, not a math major, but 7 years or 9 years average is still a lot less than 15.
Yep.
And you're paying $600 less than your rent.
Yeah. And I think even, again, when the lender gave us that packet and it was like, here's what your mortgage might be in 16 years if worst case, and it was still lower than our current rent. And it's like, this is kind of a no-brainer. Like, I don't think I need to be a finance person to say this is a good idea.
You're being incredibly humble. But I think that speaks less to you having the ability to be a finance major and more to the ease of when something is presented to you correctly.
Yeah.
Let's think about that. In 16 years, it's going to be less than the rent you're paying today.
Yep.
The rent, I mean, if you had rented for 16 years, your rent would be 3-4 times what you're paying right now.
Yep.
Yet this quote unquote terrible loan product, even at 16 years, is going to be less than your 2025 rent. The planning, the saving, the ability to be able to adjust with that chunk of money, it's such an important part. And I tell people, yes, you can go as quickly as you want to, but to the people who are sitting on a chunk of money that's close to 20% or more, look at the options you have. My gosh, that's amazing. Okay, talk to me about you and Carrie and the process of going out and looking at homes.
Yeah, so that was kind of the fun part. Again, like I think I had more fun with this process than I thought that I would. We had just gotten married, and going through the wedding planning process, I really hated. And I think it was because I'm a people pleaser and there were a lot of people to please at the wedding. And so going through the home buying process instead, it was very much just like me and my husband, like, what are we looking for together? It's just the two of us. So it was kind of more fun, just like walking into houses and what do we like? What do we not like? Even, joke about like, oh, I hate what, the owners did with this thing or
yes.
Yeah. And finding things out about ourselves. Again, like I don't know that, if I just, bought a house without looking at it, what I know that I didn't want a second story, or that I would, I'd prefer a basement instead of a second story. So it was really cool kind of learning about what do I like, and, coming from a place of, I don't really know. So that was kind of the fun part for sure.
And that was the part that got discovered with the boots on the ground. I'm all for doing as much research as you can online, but there's nothing like IRL.
Absolutely.
Well, 20 years me doing this, and I've never said it this way. For many people, when you plan a wedding, it is about other people.
Mm-hmm.
Many buyers will tell me post-wedding, that was such a stressful thing, I don't want to do it. You just gave yes, you do, because now you finally get to do a big thing, and the only opinion that matters is you too.
Exactly. Yes. It was like night and day. I mean, the home buying process was so much more fun. And it was like, we're obviously talking about like doing our floors, like, we're totally open to DIY stuff.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of fun exploring, like, if we bought this house, what kind of DIY would we want to do? Or, even contractor stuff, big stuff like that. All kinds of options for, what the two of us would, want to do together. It was almost kind of like a relationship building thing too. But yeah, it was just a ton of fun, learning about ourselves and our preferences, and and what we wanted in a house, what we might change in a house. Yeah, it's one thing to look at these houses on Zillow and like, oh, here's what the house looks like. And when you walk into it, I mean, I feel like at a certain point, I was like, I don't even want to look at the Zillow photos. Like it almost seems like it doesn't give you any information. Like walking through the house is a totally different experience.
How interesting. It's another one I've never heard before, but it makes perfect sense.
Honestly, and I've kept looking sometimes at Zillow stuff, just for the sake of it. And a lot of the listings, it's like they all look the same, and
Yes.
especially empty houses. It's like I have no idea what this house looks like in person. It's like you need to see it in person to really understand, especially layouts.
That's a big one.
We ended up putting an offer on 2 houses total. So we had one offer that didn't pan out, and that house, it had like this really odd layout where there was a half bathroom, like kind of next to it was like between the kitchen and a bedroom, and you had to and the basement stairs were right there, and you had to like step down and back up to get to the bathroom. I mean, it was super weird. And it's like, you wouldn't know that, like, unless you walk in the house. And, obviously we did make an offer on that house, and it was like, we had to have a plan for kind of like, what exactly is this going to look like when we actually use this space?
Did you end up getting outbid for that one, or did you actually get under contract?
So that one, I think we sent in an offer that was, I guess, a little lower than what they were hoping for, and so they sent
counter offer.
Yeah, they sent the counter offer that was back like at their list price, and it was, I think, it was about like 220 or 225,000, and we were like, I think we could find something better for cheaper, and we did. So
tremendous. Well, and there's another lesson. The people selling a home are not a company. They're selling one home, one time, and that's it. So when you write an offer and you're like, oh, cool, they sent a counter offer. I've had people send a counter offer that was higher than the list price.
Yeah.
When we came in there's no rules, man. So you ended up with something better and something cheaper. Now, you did say it was an older house. How did the inspection process go?
Yeah. So again, like I was, coming into the whole process, I was pretty worried about inspection stuff. I'm just a big worrier in general for a lot of things. What's the worst that could happen? But I think one of the things that was really nice about our house was that, it's an old house, but a lot of the big ticket items were relatively new. So like the water heater, the HVAC, the roof, it was all within, less than 10 years. So we felt really comfortable, coming in with knowledge that, we're not using like super out of date, appliances or roof or anything like that. So that was like a big comfort. And then the inspection itself went really well. I mean, she did her thing for a few hours when we came in, and she was like, yeah, it's, really good house. She pointed out a couple of things that were like particularly nice about it. Like, I think something about how the like the water heater and the water pipes were set up was like super clean, and really, really easy to see like where the pipes go and things like that. And she was like, yeah, this is, somebody really took care of this, this setup here. And so that just obviously made us feel really, really good about it. And it was kind of funny. We had contractors in to set up a dishwasher, which is something that we're putting in brand new, a dishwasher. And cool. I think it was the electrician was like, wow, your electric is really set up really easily. So again, like it was really nice that, we could, it's not only is it like a functional house, it's like, actually it's, nicer than it definitely could be for a house this old, which definitely gave us a lot of comfort. And, obviously the inspection brought back like a couple things, stuff that we could work on, but, reading through the inspection, it was like, you have to ask yourself, like, is this going to actually impact, how we live in this house and, the longevity of this house and things like that. Like, our porch doesn't have a railing on it. It's like, yeah, don't be drunk on the porch.
There you go.
be careful when you're walking on the porch, but like, is that really, it's a safety issue, but is it something that's actually going to, a cause for us to not buy this house? No.
And that's a beautiful thing when you understand that the big ticket items, because what you're looking at is, was there anything that wasn't obvious to me when I looked at the home? Therefore, should my list price have been significantly different? That's what the inspection is doing. And if you find stuff, yes, some of the great lessons that you had there was, I tell people all the time, if we go into a house and it's a mess and it's not taken care of, I tell them, okay, you're buying like an investor now. Because what they're telling us with the way the house is and the way it's not taken care of means that when we do the inspection, I bet we're going to find really old school, bad installation on the water heater. I bet we're going to find janky electrical that grandpa did that is all exposed wire and all that stuff. There's a second level of everything that you're looking at. And that's why for you, even though it was an old house, number one, the big ticket was good, but that says so much of how stuff was installed. That's, got to be just for someone like you, a self-proclaimed worrier, that's got to make you feel a little stable, a little calm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and another thing was too, is like, again, having a basement, basements flood.
Yep.
And one of the things that the inspector pointed out is that, oh, hey, they actually put in this big French drain, like whole basement system with the sump pump where like, this basement isn't going to flood. And if it is, like, actually the seller gave us like all their packet of information of when they had gotten that whole basement treatment thing. And they were like, here's what we bought for that basement thing. And so that made us feel really comfortable with that too.
Wow, a French drain and a sump pump. You're set.
Yeah, I was like, I'll still take the precautions of, don't put anything you want to lose on the floor of the basement. But definitely a comfort again of, somebody has already dealt with this problem and they, repaired it in the right way.
It says so much. So many people that, and they'll tell me, oh, I'm a DIY person. Find me a dump. And I'm like, okay, cosmetic only though, because if you're getting a dump with the big ticket items, it can really cost you.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. This is so inspirational. Did I miss anything was there anything else about your home buying story that you felt like you could help other people with? I'm putting you on the spot. She's thinking.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing is, and I don't know like how many people this might affect, but again, like I mentioned, like my husband had like a credit thing going on. It was a really weird situation because he had never had student loans and he'd never had a car loan or anything like that, but he had a credit card. So we were like, oh, okay, obviously credit. But his credit card was through like this rural bank, like it wasn't through a big bank, and they only reported the credit to one of the credit companies. So when the lender, so we first tried to get pre-approval with both of us because we were like, yeah, this is fine. And they came back and they were like, we asked Experian or, whatever company, and you don't exist. And he was like, what are you talking about? So, I make sure that your credit exists on all three or at least two of them, because somehow that happened. And it, that was kind of the one hurdle that it was like, what the, we never saw that coming.
When you are applying for a home loan, people have been so scared by taking a hit on their credit but at some point you need to have them either do a soft pull or a hard pull and look at your credit. And if they do a hard pull 8 months or 12 months before you're actually going to buy, it's not going to be anything that you can't make up in that time.
Yeah.
And then you could find out if you don't exist. So it's because, even though you think logically everything is going to make sense, I have a credit card. Of course I have credit. And then, oh, look, here's my credit score. Of course I have credit. Actually, you only have credit in one place. So that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. This was so amazing. I was taking all kinds of notes. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thanks for coming on the show and inspiring other people.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyaHome.com to get started.